Catherine, would you like to come up and hear a story this morning?
I just got here.
You just got here.
Oh, yeah.
You haven't even got your coat off, Sierra.
I know. Silly Buster shirt. I know. Everybody at my school wonders where I got it.
Well, I'm glad you arrived in time for this story. And this is another new story. And,
Where's the sand?
well, I'm about to bring it out.
We can see inside the box right here.
You can, yes. So this is the piece of cloth that tells us that we're in the land where Jesus lived and taught people about God. And this is another story. And this story, well, it might have happened, but we don't really know. But it doesn't matter because it's the kind of thing that would have happened in those first few weeks after Jesus had died, as people were starting to realize that he was still around. They could still feel his spirit. And so this story is about a young girl whose name is Soshanna. Soshanna.
Looks like Hosanna.
Sort of like Hosanna, yeah. But this is Soshanna. And she lived in the city of Jerusalem. It was a big city.
Oh, I missed.
Yeah, it was a big city. And she lived there with her mother and father and her brother. And this was also the city where Jesus had died. And so people there knew about this. But anyway, this particular day, Soshanna was really excited. And she was excited because her father had come home the day before. He'd been in the market, and he met there a man named Peter. And Peter was really excited about God. And Peter had known Jesus, and he was really excited about teaching people about that and baptizing people. And baptizing is where people get, in this place, pushed under the water, and they come up feeling clean and new and ready to go a different way in their life. And Peter had healed people, and Soshanna's father had seen this happen, and he was just amazed. He was filled with awe at what Peter could do. And so he had decided that he wanted to become a follower. And he came home and he told the family, he told his wife, Soshanna's mother, and Soshanna's brother. And so they all decided the next day they were going to go back to the marketplace and become followers of Jesus, just as Peter had invited them to be. And so they went into town and they came to a place where there was a pool of water, because in Jerusalem there were no rivers where they could be baptized. All the water came up out of the ground, and from deep, deep in the ground. And so there was a pool there, like a well, but it was bigger than a well. And so they went there knowing that Peter would be there baptizing people. And Peter was there, but not only was Peter there, there were crowds of people, all waiting to be baptized, all waiting one by one to be have Peter push them down under the water. And so they had to wait their turn, Soshanna and her family. And it took a long, long time. But the amazing thing was, nobody was grumpy. Sometimes, maybe you've been in a grocery store when people are grumpy if there's a lineup and they have to wait. Or or going into a show and you have to wait in line to get your ticket and people get grumpy. You know about that, don't you, Catherine? Well, these people weren't grumpy at all. They were smiling and they were happy, and they were happy to wait their turn to be baptized by Peter. And finally, after quite a long time, it was their turn. But by this time, Soshanna was really hungry, and she was really glad that her mother had packed her a lunch, which she was carrying, because she knew that she was going to need that because it had been such a long wait. And so the whole family, Peter took them, pushed them under the water, blessed them, said they were now followers of Jesus, one after the other. And Soshanna was last. And of course she didn't have her lunch when she got baptized. She put that down. And then they decided it was time to eat. And so they found a tree, and the family all gathered under the shade of the tree to have their lunch. Well, they all had their own lunch. I just didn't bring those. You have to imagine that they have their lunch. And so Soshanna opened her lunch, and there she had some bread and 3 dates. That was her lunch. And just as she was about to eat, she noticed that standing a little ways away was another girl about her age who was all by herself. And she was quite dirty. Her face was dirty, her hands were dirty, her clothes were all torn, and they were dirty. And she just kept staring at Soshanna's lunch, and staring at it, and staring at it. And Soshanna smiled at her, and this other girl smiled back. And then Soshanna looked at her loaf of bread, her little lunch and her loaf of bread, and she thought, I'm so hungry, I can eat this whole thing. But I feel so bad about this little girl who has nothing to eat. And so finally she remembered that Peter had said to them, while they were gathered, that Jesus taught people to love everyone and to share. And so she took her loaf. Oops.
What's that? Raisin? Yeah.
Those are her dates.
They're dates that
Look like raisins, yeah. And so she took her loaf of bread and she broke it in half.
It's hard bread.
It is hard bread. And she invited this girl to come over, and she gave her half of her bread. And Soshanna had half of her bread. And they ate together. And the girl said, "Thank you." And in a very weak voice, it was obvious that she was really hungry, and so she gobbled up the loaf. And then she said, "I'm Nishad." And Soshanna said, "I'm really glad to meet you, Nishad. I'm Soshanna." And so she gave Nishad 2 of her figs, and she kept 1 for herself, because she knew that she would have more when she got home, but Nishad might not have anything to go back to. And then Soshanna thought for a minute, and she thanked God for sending her a new friend.
That's why it's probably became friends.
I wonder how it would feel to be alone with nothing to eat.
Really upsetting because you're just there and there's nobody to play with. It just feels like you're in a dark cave that nobody knows where you are. In
Yeah,
a dungeon.
it's upsetting, feeling alone, like you're in a cave.
Like this is Frozen. Anna's sister stuck in a dungeon.
I wonder how it would feel to to share your lunch with someone who really needed it?
It would feel really good because you're giving something up to help somebody else, and you're not just thinking about yourself.
Yeah, not just thinking about yourself, but helping someone. I wonder what happened next.
Well, they went home, and maybe if the other girl was alone and she didn't have a family, they could have adopted her.
Maybe they adopted Nisha. Yeah, wouldn't that be cool?
Yeah. Maybe they could be sisters.
Yeah.
Or they would have become twins.
They would have become twins.
If they were the exact same age.
Yeah. Well, they look pretty similar, don't they?
Yeah. Other than
Well, that's our story. We're going to sing a song.
But what's
This-
different?
What's different?
The song's not on there.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
And also this.
There are some differences. We're going to sing a song called Teach Me, God, to Wonder. And then you're welcome to go off to children's church for a time.